The day humans discovered death, and it broke everything. At some point in prehistory, a human sat next to a body, not running from it, not eating it, not doing anything useful at all, just sitting with it. And that moment, that one quiet, devastating moment, is arguably the most important thing that has ever happened in the history of our species. Because that human understood something no animal before them had ever fully grasped. The person lying there wasn't sleeping, wasn't going to wake up, wasn't coming back. And then came the thought that changed everything. That's going to happen to me too. Welcome to the most expensive realization in the history of life on Earth. First, let's get something straight. Animals are not completely clueless about death. Don't make that mistake. Elephants return to the bones of their dead. They touch them. They linger for hours. Chimpanzees carry the bodies of dead infants for days, sometimes weeks, refusing to put them down. Crows hold what researchers cautiously describe as funeral gatherings. They surround a dead crow, go completely silent, and then disperse. So animals notice death. They respond to it. They clearly feel something. But here is the critical difference. There is no evidence that any non-human animal understands death as a concept, as a universal rule, as something that is going to happen to them personally, in the future, no matter what they do. A crow gathering around a dead crow is responding to what is directly in front of it. It is almost certainly not lying awake that night thinking, one day that will be me, and I don't know when, and there is absolutely nothing I can do to stop it. That thought, that specific, terrifying, forward-projecting, self-applying thought, is uniquely human, and it cost us everything, and built us everything, sometimes at the exact same time. Here is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because we have physical evidence of when humans started understanding death differently, and it shows up in the archaeological record as something you would never expect. Flowers. In 1960, archaeologist Ralph Selecki excavated a Neanderthal burial site in Shanidar Cave in what is now Iraq. He found something that stopped the field cold. The body had been buried with enormous quantities of pollen, from at least 8 different plant species, many of them with known medicinal properties. Someone had placed flowers on this grave. Around 60,000 years ago, the flower theory has been debated since. Some researchers argue the pollen arrived through natural means. But here's what nobody debates. Neanderthals buried their dead deliberately. They positioned bodies carefully. They placed objects with them. They treated death as an event that required a response beyond just walking away. That is not animal behavior. That is the beginning of something else entirely. And by the time modern humans are leaving clear archaeological traces, around 100,000 years ago, the evidence becomes overwhelming. Deliberately dug graves, bodies covered in red ochre, jewelry buried with people who would never wear it again, tools placed beside hands that would never use them. These are not the actions of creatures that don't understand what death means. These are the actions of creatures desperately trying to do something about it. Here is what I want you to actually sit with for a second. The human brain is a prediction machine. That is its primary function. Not beautiful thoughts, not poetry, not philosophy. Those are side effects. Its core job is to take in information about the present and simulate the future so you can survive it. And for millions of years, that worked perfectly. See predator, predict danger, run. Find food, predict satisfaction, eat. Simple, clean, life-saving. But then something happened. The brain got bigger. The simulations got more sophisticated. The ability to project into the future got sharper and more detailed. And one day, a human ran that simulation far enough forward. And the simulation said, "You stop. Not today. Not tomorrow maybe. But eventually, the simulation just ends. The screen goes dark. And no amount of running, eating, fighting, hiding, or building changes that final output." Psychologists call this mortality salience, the awareness of your own inevitable death. And what researchers have consistently found is that it does not just make humans sad. It rewires everything. Terror management theory, developed in the 1980s, argues that the awareness of death is so psychologically destabilizing that virtually everything humans build, every culture, every religion, every system of meaning, is at its root a response to that terror. We did not build civilization because we were thriving. We built it because we were terrified. Let's go through what actually fell out of that one realization, because the list is genuinely staggering. Religion. Every major religion in human history grapples centrally with death. What happens after? How to live in the face of it? How to make it meaningful? How to survive it symbolically even when you cannot survive it physically? The ancient Egyptians built the most elaborate death management infrastructure in human history. The entire pyramid complex. The mummification process. The Book of the Dead. All of it was engineering aimed at one problem: cheating the ending. You do not build the pyramids because you are comfortable with death. You build them because you are absolutely not. Art. The oldest confirmed cave art is around 45,000 years old, and a huge proportion of it depicts animals. The animals humans hunted. The animals humans feared. Researchers have strong evidence these were not decorations. They were ritual, symbolic attempts to control or communicate with forces that determined life and death. Art does not begin as self-expression. Art begins as a negotiation with mortality. War. This one is darker but important. Terror management research has consistently shown that when people are reminded of their own death, they become more aggressive toward people who are different from them, more tribal, more defensive of their own worldview. Because if someone believes differently and lives differently, they represent a quiet threat to your entire meaning system, to the story you are telling yourself about why your life matters and what happens when it ends. Death awareness does not just build things. It destroys them too. Legacy. Why do humans care so intensely about being remembered? Why do we name buildings after ourselves, have children, create things we hope will outlive us, desperately want to matter to people we will never meet? The blunt answer from research is symbolic immortality. If you cannot live forever, the next best thing is leaving something behind that does. Your name, your children, your ideas, your work. The drive to leave a legacy is death awareness wearing a productive disguise. Storytelling. Here is a connection that almost never gets made. The obsession humans have with narrative, with stories that have beginnings and middles and ends, is almost certainly connected to death awareness. Because a story is fundamentally a structure that imposes meaning on events. That says this happened, and then this happened, and it meant something. Humans became obsessed with narrative because narrative is how you make a finite life feel like it had a shape, like it was going somewhere, like it was not just random noise that eventually stops. Here is where it gets philosophically uncomfortable. Death awareness is, by any honest measure, a cognitive burden of almost incomprehensible weight. No other animal carries it, and if you could somehow surgically remove it from the human brain, you would eliminate an enormous amount of suffering. The existential dread at 3 a.m., the anxiety about time running out, the grief that hollows a person out completely, the terror that makes some people unable to function. Gone. But you would also eliminate almost everything humans have ever built. The pyramids, the Sistine Chapel, every cathedral ever constructed, every symphony ever written, every poem about love that was really about the fear of losing it. Every act of heroism that required someone to decide their death could mean something. Every religion that gave a frightened human enough meaning to keep going through unbearable suffering. All of it downstream of that one broken, terrifying, uniquely human thought. I'm going to die. The wound and the cathedral are the same thing. The terror and the art are the same thing. The thing that broke us is the exact same thing that built us. So the next time you are at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, doing that thing where your brain will not stop running the simulation forward and you do not like where it ends, know that you are doing the most human thing it is possible to do. You are running the same program that built every monument, every religion, every story, every act of love that was really an act of defiance against the dark. The squirrel outside your window is not doing this. The dew in the field is not doing this. The elephant, for all its grief, is probably not doing this. Just you. Just us. Terrified, meaning-making, monument-building, desperately creative us. The animal that discovered death and decided to build something anyway.